playing it.
Oh
That
yeah.
probably has to do with it. By the way, welcome everybody. Welcome to Spellcast, episode 7. I'm
Oh
Yoshi
man.
Fish. We're talking about RE6 for a little bit. We're going to be talking about Diablo,
Yeah.
first and
I'm
foremost.
Binary Ghosts, also known as K++ or Keith++. I have many names, but that won't matter because you won't remember them.
Nobody will remember me either, or this stream.
Yep.
So it's okay.
I was nobody before all this, and still nobody. It's great.
Nobody cared who I was until I put on the mask, and now people still don't care.
Yep. Man, there's a
That sounds
lot of
about right.
noise going on. I'm gonna turn down the volume of the game.
Go for that. You're playing Diablo 3, though, right now, right?
Yeah. I'm playing it with the enhancements from the latest expansion, the Reaper of Souls.
Is the expansion good? Bad?
Well,
You didn't play it before, did you?
no, I didn't play the base game before, and I haven't gotten into any expansion levels. But like with Diablo 2, with its Lord of Destruction, the expansion changed some basic things in the game from what the notes told me when I first installed it. So the health potions being percentage-wise instead of like a static, this is a small potion, medium potion, big potion. Now it's all one single health potion that just does percentages based on something. Which I kind of like. It's something I can agree with.
Oh, we'll get into that. But let's go in a chronological order.
Okay.
Let's start with the original, the OG, Diablo 1. Did you play it?
Yes.
Tell
Played
me
it.
of your memories.
Well, I got into PC gaming from StarCraft. So Blizzard actually kind of got me into PC gaming. And so I played StarCraft for a while, and then I saw this other game that they made, Diablo. I was like, well, that seems kind of interesting. I mean, I had been a console peasant for a long time before then, so there really wasn't like a dungeon crawler on consoles. Not anything that was worth picking up anyway. So I downloaded a 50 megabyte demo on 56K, and so that took like about half a day.
As was standard.
Yeah, took about half a day to play like 2 or 3 levels. And I actually liked it. I was hooked. So I got the actual game, which was super cheap by then. And it was pretty awesome to play. I remember. It was something like at least I hadn't seen before, because again, I hadn't really been big into PC. As I understand, PC had a long-standing tradition of those sorts of RPGs, with your Ultimas and things like that.
Yeah, definitely. But nothing really too actiony like Diablo was. I think the closest would be. I mean, there were some Ultimas. The earlier Ultimas were turn-based, if I recall, but Ultima 7, I think, is when they started making it more action-based, taking away turns, or
Yeah.
the concept of turns. And Ultima Underworld, too, even though it was first-person.
Yeah. Well, Diablo 3, I remember, had 3 different classes: warrior, I think it was warrior, rogue, and wizard, or mage. I think they called him sorcerer.
He was a black guy, and he casted spells. That's
Yeah.
pretty much all I remember.
That's the one I played.
He was Shazam, actually.
I played Shazam. I remember when I went online and I started playing with people, and I didn't realize what hacked gear was. And so some people just dropped some crazy, powerful shit, and I was like, oh, thanks. And I just wiped the floor with everything, and I was like, man, this is great. Why don't I ever find this stuff? I thought it was all hacked, and I kind of felt like I cheated. But
someone did the cheating for you.
Yeah. Diablo 1 and StarCraft were also my first insights, or my first steps into online gaming and communities built around a certain game. The internet, for you people who were born in the year 2004, the internet was a thing in the mid 90s to late 90s, late 90s, early 2000s, was something that just wasn't with everyone. And even if you did have it, you usually had a dial-up system, 56K, which is extremely slow by any standard these days. And people who had anything higher than that were usually government buildings or some really, really rich nerds. But I digress. Anyway, getting into that sort of online gaming life and seeing actual communities built around a game, which was starkly different from anything else that I really knew. Basically, oh, you have your group of friends, you all play video games. It's not really a community built around one game. It's just, people who play games. And now I'm seeing chat rooms and shit. It was a different experience. But my memories of the game specifically, uh, really not much to say. I mean, I was hooked on the lore. I mean, that's one thing that I found is that, you know what? As far as back then, I think Diablo was really one of my first real story-driven games, which is something interesting now that I think about it. Personally
You were
interesting.
hooked on it. You were hooked in the story. You were ready to save Tristram.
Yeah, like I got into it and I played it, and the gameplay was so that it kept me drawn in, but the story also kept me drawn in. It's kind of like the whole when it comes to like stories like that, I kind of like the whole demons and magic, and they flesh out the world, and the manual to the game had uh, had a lot of awesome little lore to it as well.
Yeah,
Um,
Blizzard made great manuals back in the day.
yeah,
Very artistic. They really ran with it, and it was great.
one of my chat people are asking me to speak of Torchlight 2. Well, I mean, we could start comparing the games, but we'd really have to get into like
Have some,
Diablo 2
yeah.
before we start doing that.
I have some connections I'll draw. Don't worry. Torchlight 2's will be discussed, but I like Torchlight 2 a lot. It's actually probably one of my favorites.
Well, it feels like the old Diablo games. And by old Diablo, I mean if you watching my channel, as you can see, I'm playing Diablo 3. So Diablo 3 is a different beast altogether, but we need to get to that.
Oh, we'll get there. I assure you. I really enjoyed Diablo 1. I think I'll go so far as to say it's my favorite of the three Diablos.
Really,
I think it's the most immersive, to be honest with you.
really.
Yes, I can
Wow.
tell you
Okay.
exactly why. You can't run in Diablo 1, and I think that's the biggest thing. You are forced to slowly navigate these dungeons, and the enemies are vicious. I mean, a lot of enemies are just straight up faster than you. And I don't know, in Diablo 2 and 3, and even in Torchlight 2, I know there's wallers in Diablo 3 and stuff like that, but it felt like I was kind of just blasting through it and, using my best ability and slaughtering. It felt like those games were more about getting awesome loot and making your character better, which is great. I enjoy that, and I
Well,
enjoy
isn't
those
that
games.
isn't that Diablo 1 in a basic nutshell? It's all about getting the best equipment and making your character better. I mean, that's why you picked up spell books and shit and did those
Well,
stat trainings.
yeah, I mean, it was an RPG. Your character was getting better. But
Yeah.
again, I wasn't playing it multiplayer per se, but there wasn't somebody to gamble with. Uh, you could buy items, but I don't recall them being really incredibly good. There were actually cursed items. I remember that. That shit was hilarious.
Well, yeah, there was that, and I remember that one little shit Rit would sell you items at an exorbitant price.
Oh yeah, Rit did let you gamble, didn't he? Maybe
Yeah,
I'm wrong. He like you bet on a random white item, and it was either shitty or
or
well,
really
usually
good.
it was shitty because he's a fucking peg leg piece of shit.
God, it,
I just
it
wanted to rip
felt
you
so
off.
good to find him in Diablo 2.
Yeah, it was great seeing him dead and taking all his gold.
And his fucking leg. Fuck you, peg leg piece of shit.
Exactly. That's what happens to cripples. Let's be honest here. Let's just lay down the law right now. But
What's my opinion on Path of Exile? I don't have an opinion on Path of Exile. Do you?
yeah, I've played Path of Exile. I think it's very good. I think if you were super, super, super into Diablo 2 in terms of the really higher up metagaming and different builds and stuff like that, I
Yeah.
think you really need to check out Path of Exile. There's no classes, putting quotation marks around those. It's Final Fantasy X style of leveling up. But I very
Oh,
much love the economy in that game. It's very geared towards the type of player that enjoys randomized like stats on weapons and stuff like that.
I might check that out. That sounds. I just to go off on a little aside. I actually enjoyed Final Fantasy X's level up system. I mean, I know a lot of people didn't seem to like it, but I thought it was pretty neat. So I might check out Path of Exile if that's the case.
It's exactly like it. So that's legitimately what it is. It's
Good.
fun. It's interesting. I guess the best way to describe it is if you were someone in Diablo 2 who were down with rares, and when I say rares, I mean the yellow quality items, and we're about kind of getting the best stats you could
If
on
you were
those,
about it,
you would really like Path of Exile,
might check that out.
and the
Um,
atmosphere is really good.
refresh my memory. I can't. I mean, it's been a long time since I played
All right.
Diablo 1. When it came to, I know you trained your stats, and you had
Mm-hmm.
your basic character class, and that was basically what was going to start out as your bulk stat. So if you were the mage, it was going to be the magic stat. If you were the warrior, it was going to be the strength stat, and if you were the rogue, I think it was dex.
Yeah,
Yeah, because it wasn't terribly complicated back then. But when it came to skills, I think you were just reading books that you would find, and you would kind of have to make the judgment call if that's the book you wanted.
yeah. I think there's one class specific ability to every class, but it wasn't really
Yeah,
something nuts. I'm pretty sure mages could recharge items. I think warriors could repair items on the fly. I have no clue what rogues could do.
yeah. It's been. I seem to remember there was like a different disconnect for me when I did Diablo 2. I thought I was like, oh, this is kind of crazy because I didn't have to like hunt for my skills; they were all right there.
Yeah, you had to find spells in Diablo 1.
Yeah, that's
And
what I
anybody
thought.
could use spells as long as you had the sufficient magic stat. And anyone could use any equipment. So you kind of just choosing your class just determined what kind of gear you started with and
And
stuff like that. Your
yeah,
basic starting stats.
how you had to fight. Because with mages, it was usually long range and running away or walking away.
Walking away. I like that you could only walk in Diablo 1. I sincerely believe that's what made it so immersive to me.
Well, in Diablo 2, you could only run for like a certain amount of time. You had an actual stamina to deal with.
Yeah, but you don't think that? I felt like that more have gotten away because Diablo 2 had those very very big open areas, and Diablo 1 was always contained into a dungeon. And a
Mm,
lot of times you ran out of stamina on the overland map. I mean, eventually it got to where stamina isn't really that big of a deal.
yeah. Um, yeah. Uh, I remember being in an open map in Diablo 2 and thinking, wow, this is kind of crazy. Because Diablo 1, it takes place in one town. You go into a church, and then later on you go into catacombs, and you're just going down, 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 down.
Yeah, it's kind of like a lot of those old school RPGs where you have the one dungeon and then you go back to town and then you go back into the dungeon and you
Yeah.
just instead of going up, you just go down.
What's my opinion on my opinion? I think my opinion is pretty great. That's my opinion on my opinion.
I agree.
You agree with my opinion, or you agree with your opinion? Is that your
I
opinion on
agree
my
with your
opinion?
opinion on your opinion. Not
I agree with.
necessarily your original opinion, but
Oh,
your opinion on the opinion I agree with.
well, I agree with your opinion on my opinion of my opinion.
All right, then we're in agreement.
We're game journalists now.
Yep. If there's a $20 bill being slipped over the stream.
Oh, oh, am I gonna have to do some sort of quote unquote favor?
Well, let's just say this stream doesn't promote itself.
Oh,
Well. Oh boy. But what else was the Diablo one that was very? It was a good start. There's duping. We can't talk about Diablo one without talking about duping, can we? And
duping, lost art. Well,
explain.
remember that Diablo 1, I can't really remember the exact things with duping. I do know about the hacked items, though, and why it worked. Because Diablo 1, wasn't an online game. You could play with other people. And it was all box hosted, so the player would host, but that also meant that all your stuff of your character was hosted on your machine, and so was everything else about any data files ever. So people would just make these incredibly hacked items and go into multiplayer and just fuck each other up so badly. But I think duping wasn't duping where you would grab an item from a higher level, go into a multiplayer game, drop it, and then get your lower character and give him that item.
Duping is when you create duplicates of an item.
Oh,
I believe
oh
that.
man, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, guys. I just started playing games like a year ago.
All right. Well, I'll explain duping. I could be wrong too. I mean, it's so long ago, but duping was you were able to duplicate items. So a lot of people did this with Godly Plate of the Whale because it was the best armor in the game.
Mm.
And I'm pretty sure the idea was that you would throw in an item and you would somehow walk towards it to pick it up, and then you would like throw it down again or something, and you would create a duplicate item. I have
Hmm.
no clue how it worked, but it was great because people just duped online, and then there's people that said they were gonna dupe but really just stole your gear,
I
which is which is the beautiful part about Diablo 1 and 2.
remember my first time in online and seeing someone drop a shitload of ears. I was like, "What the fuck are these ears for?" And I just kind of picked them up and left. And he was so pissed off at me.
Yeah, he's trying to
He's
show
like,
off
"Those
his
weren't for
work
you," and I'm
ethic.
like, "Well, why the fuck did you drop them?" And then I just kind of all sold them for 1 gold because they weren't worth shit.
Yep.
Man, this is kind of stupid. Then I later found out that they were for PvP, and I was like, "Oh, that's neat." I think the guy was trying to intimidate me or something.
You could actually make a necklace with them, if I recall.
Really?
Yeah, with the Roger Cube and Diablo
That's
2.
Diablo 2.
Was there PvP in Diablo 1?
Yeah,
Really?
I mean, at the point, I think I remember PvP in Diablo 1. I mean, I may just be getting those memories mixed.
We'll assume there was. And if we're wrong, oh well.
I mean, it'd be hard to imagine why there wouldn't be. But I don't know. Should we get into Diablo 2 now? Oh, before that, I was gonna say Diablo 1 with the whole you're only in one town, you keep going deeper and deeper and deeper into this church and into these catacombs, and finally into hell. It's a very Lovecraftian sort of thing.
The descent into madness.
Well, if you read most of any of Lovecraft's stories, a good chunk of them, other than like the Call of Cthulhu, which is like, hey, we're on a boat, and a couple others, most of them they kind of have the characters going into like some deep dark place, ever going down deeper and deeper and deeper. And there's quite a few stories where like a guy will find like an ancient temple or something, either by purpose or by accident, and he'll just keep going down, 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 and finally he finds some sort of weird shit that man was never meant to know, or some, crazy shit that like that.
An ancient evil awakens.
Yeah, an ancient evil
Um,
awakened,
hey, that's what it all boils down to.
and they'll get out just in time, of course, with no sort of proof that any of that happened, and of course the ancient evil is either gone by the time they try to show other people or whatever. But yeah, Diablo 1 kind of reminds me a lot of that, just that constant descent, and then every now and then you come up for air, but everyone else knows about it, which is kind of different. And that
Definitely.
price gouging asshole Rit, fuck him.
And there was an expansion, but neither of us played it. So.
Talk about Colonel Campbell reading creepy tomes in Diablo 1. The fuck?
The voice actor.
I don't remember that.
There's voice acting in the first game, and it was really good. He's probably talking about Deckard Cain. I know there's a goat NPC that you could find in the middle of the dungeon who was a merchant. He was
Yeah.
hilarious. And I'm trying to remember who else was in the town. Griswold was. He was the character. He was the blacksmith. and he was a later enemy in Diablo 2. But let's go ahead and talk about Diablo 2. Let's talk
Okay.
about what are the biggest changes, because Diablo 2 was like holy shit.
Diablo 2 was a huge leap from Diablo 1. Huge
How?
leap from Diablo.
Why?
Well, all right. So instead of being in one town, you now had a huge overmap, and this is from my first impressions. I'm remembering my first impressions when I first popped in that disc and I first started playing. You had this huge overmap that you had things to kill along the way. It wasn't just, hey, go over to that church over there. There's creepy shit happening in it. Oh, demons? Well, here, let me sell you this sword. I know our town is in danger, but here, I'm gonna make you pay for things while you try to save us. Which is that kind of was like a weird thing to me in Diablo 1, to be quite honest with you.
Well, yeah, they can't just give away weapons to anybody.
Well, I mean, like, hey, we're all in mortal danger, but I still want you to pay for this. Full price.
Hey,
But,
you gotta make sure that there's a business, there's a life after Diablo, alright?
look, we're all kind of really confident that you're going to beat this thing, so that's why you got to pay us with all this gold you're finding. If you think about it, every hero technically ruins the economy of the town. If that town never trades outside, you've just inflated the economy by like crazy because you keep pumping all this gold into this town, and pretty soon everyone's fucking rich. And now it costs like 20 gold to buy a piece of bread.
Hey, that's tough life. They
Heroes,
just
man.
need to have more people go out and get killed and lose their money.
Heroes cause more damage than they do good.
Hmm? So they should give away the weapons for free.
Yeah. So anyway, Diablo 2, huge overworld thing, which was crazy. And then when you look at your you had a quest screen, and when you look at that, there's like 4 different acts, and it's like, well, what the fuck does that mean? And there was like what 6 quests per act, or 8 quests? 6. No, 8.
That's a lot. I think it's 6. Who knows? It varied
It
by
was
act.
8 quests per act, if I recall correctly, and a lot of different little sub bosses and mini bosses. And he seemed to have like a bigger fleshed out story and a whole lot more character classes right off the bat.
Actual classes.
Yeah, actual classes, because you no longer had just hunting for your spells. Your character's abilities were right there for you to train as you saw fit. And on top of that, it wasn't just one little sheet of spells, it was 3 different sheets of spells. So each character class had 3 different aspects, which meant that you could do a crazy little different combinations of builds and things. You actually had very highly customizable characters even within their own classes. So my favorite class was the Necromancer, and the Necromancer, a lot of people did things where they just summoned things to fight for them. Yeah, the skeletons or the golems or whatever. Skelemancers, Lagmancers as they were called on the multiplayer.
Oh yeah, they were definitely lagmancers.
Oh man, those things got fucking annoying sometimes.
You could have so many, it was great. I mean, necromancers could legitimately have like a fucking army.
Yeah, but eventually they squashed that and put a real limit to the amount of skeletons you can summon. That came out with the expansion, I think. But yeah, so just taking the Necromancer as an example, you have the summoning things, which a skill tree all dedicated to summoning. You had one that was dedicated to curses, which made your Necromancer even more of a support class because it sort of like a negative support class. You had curses that would benefit your people, but a lot of them were supposed to be dealt to enemies, to poison them, to lower their strength, make them flee, like all kinds of weird little effects, which I never found much use for.
They were fun, but there were problems with them. Like, you could only have an enemy affected by one curse at a time. But there's some really good curses.
Yeah, so that's something I shied away from. And then you had your direct spells, which turned it more into a warrior mage with like bone spear and like bone armor and things like that. And every class kind of had that sort of thing, which was interesting because then you could do things where you could start playing against normal class types or class tropes. So with a necromancer with his bone armor ability, because in Diablo 2 you could actually train the actual attributes. So like you trained your stats, what your character's going to do: strength, dexterity, life, magic, blah blah blah. But you also had your little attributes, so it wasn't just like, oh, I learned this skill, now this skill is just going to scale as I level. No, it was your skill needs to level up. You have to actually you actually have to put effort into that, I don't know, points into that skill for it to go up, which meant that you also had this resource. So if you were going to go with a build, you kind of had to stick with it, because by the third act, that's when you would find out is if you were worth anything, at least when it came to anything I built. Because by the third act, you were either getting really fucked up or you were dealing well. And you'd get really fucked up if you just went ahead and said, oh, that looks interesting, put a point in, move on. Oh, that looks interesting, put a point in, move on. No, you really had to dedicate yourself to a certain skill set. And oftentimes, I mean, you'd have to try to plan ahead. So your character might be weak as fuck for a while until you really finally get that level and that ability to get that one skill that you really wanted to build a character around. And that is pretty much the biggest changes I noticed. Oh, and you could also run.
Oh yeah, you could run, and you couldn't respec in the early before the expansion came out. So you were stuck with what choices you made, which
Yep.
is maybe a little bit harsh, but you know what? It's Diablo. Deal with it.
Yeah. And then the hardcore difficulty.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of big changes that Diablo 2 brought, and I think the biggest were that it kind of made a transition more towards kind of the go around kill shit mentality, which is fun. I mean that's why we love these games. And there was a lot more different rarities of loot. There's magic, there's rares, unique, there were set items.
The gems.
Yep, gems. There's socketed items. You could put gems in there. They later added rune words.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, the runes came in with Lord of Destruction expansion, right?
Pretty sure, yeah.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah, they were cool, and there's different rune word weapons. There was
Yeah.
there's equipment that let you use abilities. I think there might have been some uh, items that let you do that in Diablo 1. But in
Yeah, a
Diablo
lot of
2,
the
they were all
hacked
more common.
items that I ever got a hold of were like just ultra ultra powerful versions of existing items, which let you do exactly that. Different abilities and shit.
Definitely the biggest thing would have to be the skill trees, though. And I agree
Yeah.
there. Just classes. There's a lot of classes too. There's the barbarian, there's the sorceress, the necromancer, the Amazon, and I could be forgetting the paladin. And
Sorceress.
yeah, and the sorceress too. They had all these different skills. They were all played very uniquely, and it made a real impact on what you chose to, start or what to be. You flat out just weren't going to be these. You're going to be different. You're going to play differently. I mean, a lot
Yeah.
of it boiled down to using your best ability to kill stuff, but at the same time, it was really good back in the '90s.
Well, I think
That's innovation.
Diablo 2 came out, yeah, came out very late 90s or very early 2000s. I mean, it's been so fucking long. Um, I would say like probably the hallmark of Diablo 2, among anything that that you could really say about it, is the game championed customization of your character, of your play style, of your class, like everything. Even your weapons and things with the rune words, and the Horadric Cube was actually a pretty neat thing too.
Oh
It
yeah,
was, yeah, it was basically a huge customization fest, because while if you did PvP or whatever, there was obviously the best builds ever to do whatever to maximize the strengths of any given class versus the weaknesses of others. But if you want to just kind of fuck around and play around with different builds and things, like just different strategies, like I said, take a necromancer and make him into like a warrior mage, you know, use that bone armor and stuff. You could do those kind of weird things that you probably wouldn't do in most other games these days. I mean, you're certainly not doing that in Diablo 3 so much.
Yeah,
Uh,
because there were some equipment that had class restrictions, but not too much.
no,
A lot
I
of
think that came
weapons and
in.
stuff could be used
I
by him.
think the class restrictions came in with Lord of Destruction.
Yeah, they added like I know sorceresses and necromancers always had the wands, but for necromancers they got like shrunken heads, and paladins got like scepters, I believe, or something like that.
Yeah. And I think certain classes were just better with certain weapons. Not really class restricted, but like you had with necromancers, you had a lot of things that had to do with having a dagger.
Yeah, poison dagger was great.
Yeah, that you're just not going to get with other classes. But again, that goes back to like just what are you going to build on that class? With the sorceress, I think your differences were what element you were going to choose to champion.
Mm-hmm. Lightning, ice, or
So
fire.
yeah, and I think that's another thing that showed up in Diablo 2 that wasn't in Diablo 1 were elemental enemies and attacks. I can't quite remember if that's true,
I
but I think
I think
so.
there's elemental resist in the first game, but I'm not sure. It was definitely huge in Diablo 2 because they had the whole Nightmare in Hell mode after you beat the game originally, and it's always painful for any sorceress or a necromancer who beats the game because then in Nightmare, regular enemies start to be completely immune to a certain type of magic, just like
Oh,
zombies are immune to ice. It's just like if you were in ice, uh, sorcerers, you're kind of screwed.
get online, get a friend.
Oh yeah, the multiplayer. The multiplayer is so much bigger in Diablo 2, and there was everything. I mean, even I had a bot that ran around trying to collect loot. Trading was
What?
huge. They even took in the form-based trading. There were certain sites that had forms set up, and you didn't even trade. You traded currency on the form itself, and then that was the currency. You didn't trade golds or anything. So you'd get people that would like log in and make a server in the game, and they would
So
give in
you were
items
part of
and
the
stuff on
cancer
it.
killing video games. Good job. Good
Well,
job.
I didn't take part of it. My friend did.
Oh,
He was super into it. I definitely played a bot though, or I had my own bot. I had a hammered in bot who went around and got loot. It was great, but people would give away like insert rare or unique item here, and they would get like 10, I don't know, Diablo credits on the forum site, and then they use that to trade items.
low creds.
The creds, bitcoins. But
Um.
hmm.
Well, yeah, I guess that's cool. I mean, Blizzard, the Blizzard item shop thing really didn't work out too well for Diablo 3.
I forgot all about the item shop until you mentioned it.
So did a lot of
We're really
people.
gonna harp on Diablo 3, but
Huh?
I said we're really gonna harp on Diablo 3.
Yeah, but I think it has its merits. Um,
What's up?
Diablo 2, yeah. I mean, and when the expansion pack came out, the expansion pack added a whole lot of things. It added a whole new act. That was pretty cool. But it added like
Two new
two,
classes,
yeah, the
the
druid,
druid and the
but
assassin.
yeah, and I played the druid, and I actually really liked doing the druid because there were some higher level skills that would just turn you into a goddamn wrecking machine. It was like hurricane and I think some meteor skill or some shit, and I would just spam the fuck out of that and walk through rooms murdering everything.
Yeah,
Nothing
hurricane
could
was
really
really good.
touch me.
I think hurricane was especially good. I think it did cold, but I think it did neutral damage. I could be wrong.
Yeah. And of course, like with every class, you also had the thing where you could turn into animals. The
Oh yeah,
druid
you could
was
shapeshift.
the druid was for the furries.
That's why you played it. I mean,
Just like World of Warcraft is for furries.
yep, the Pandaren expansion and the wolf.
Yep.
Didn't they add a wolf race?
I
I
don't
don't
know.
know.
I've never been really extremely interested in Starcraft, not Starcraft, World of Warcraft or Warcraft in general. Like I got Warcraft 3 and I was like, okay, this is kind of neat, but I had been kind of weaned on StarCraft. So when I and Command and Conquer. So I was used to having like large armies of essentially disposable mooks, and you couldn't really do that in Warcraft. You had to kind of take care of them, and Warcraft 3 had that hero system, and I didn't want to have to take care of any given hero. I hated doing that in campaign missions in StarCraft. So for as far as a game, I really kind of And so when World of Warcraft came out, I was like, oh look, more of this shit? No thanks. And I'm still that way.
No, I don't blame you.
Fuck you all.
To each their own. I didn't play WoW either, but the thing I liked most about multiplayer in Diablo 2 was there were very specific games that were just catered to a certain what was going to happen. It's like, all right, look, we're going to Tristram on Nightmare mode. If you're not here for that, fuck you. It's that simple. We're here to duel. If you don't want to duel, go somewhere else. We're here to trade. This is a game for trading. This is a game for, this quest and this act on this difficulty mode.
Yeah,
there was lots of loot runs. It was great.
That was actually something I kind of missed. I actually have not done Diablo 3 online, so I don't know what the climate of that is. If it's anything like StarCraft 2, then there's really no. I miss that game list and that chat room feel.
I don't know why they took away chat rooms and game lists. I have no clue why. It was to let you make games and get connected with people that were looking for the same thing.
I mean, they eventually put chat rooms into their whole, I guess, new Battle.net thing with StarCraft 2. Mm-hmm. People are like, hey, we want chat rooms, and Blizzard's like, oh, shit, I guess you guys do. But,
well, we had chat rooms back in the 90s, so.
By then, I think the damage has already been done, because not many people use them. And I see people doing chats on this, but, I mean, it's like a chat option that's, like, right into your game, which is shit that's built into, like,
World of Warcraft.
MMORPGs, World of Warcraft.
Yeah, I think it was legit built from, like, the World of Warcraft kind of program or whatever the hell. I can't even think of the name. Just look at the chat window itself. It looks so similar.
Oh, yeah. But, with Diablo 2, you still have that old Battle.net feel. You just kind of go in, find your chat room, maybe go to your clan, do whatever. And find games, find people, trash talk, learn about loot, click that little gem on and off and not know what the fuck it does.
Yep. That gem, I still don't know to this day.
I don't think it actually did anything. I think it was a huge social experiment to see how they could get people to click something and how many times they can ask about it. Because every time I asked what it does, the answer was always different. Because people didn't know, and they were just making shit up. Everyone became that kid who has a dad that works at Nintendo, so he knows. Like, I talked to some people, and they said, oh, it increased your drop rate of certain items, and then others would be like, oh, no, it decreases your drop rate. And I was like, well, what the fuck? Which one is it? And others would say it like made your games easier to find, or like different answers each fucking time. I honestly think it did absolutely nothing.
The gem?
Yeah.
It's a mystery.
It probably did absolutely fucking nothing.
Probably.
It was just there.
Did you like PvP in Diablo 2? PvP was huge. I didn't like it, though. I didn't like teleporting around and kind of hoping that you hit the enemy. At least that's what it felt like to me.
I kind of honestly didn't really get into PvP. On a lot of games, I really don't get into PvP. At least not these, like, sort of RPG build-based games. For me, it's more about seeing how many different ways I can fuck up the mooks, rather than trying to build my character against some other person's build. Because that's kind of what StarCraft devolved into, right? I mean, build orders and shit. And that type of gameplay just isn't appealing to me. If I'm gonna do player versus player, I want to know that our characters are equal And what's going to really kill you is skill or actual strategy. Not really. Not really. Well, I put more points into this, and I was able to find this armor, or buy it off of some Chinese kid.
preferably Chinese kid. Wu Wang gave you a good discount, so
Yeah. So that's kind of why I shied away from a lot of that. Because I think they did eventually figure out how to hack items in Diablo 2 for online games.
oh yeah, definitely. My friend, oh god, it's hilarious. He got completely taken for a ride. He had the Immortal King set. He had the full set, and this is back in the earlier days, so it was like fucking sweet. And this guy was like, "Oh yeah, let me show you this map hack tool." He's like, "Yeah, just go here and download it." And as soon as he clicked to go download it, his character got taken over and just started running around, dropping all of his gear they had equipped. And
Oh,
the guy started
God.
picking it up. It was hilarious, but he was pissed.
That's fucking horrible. Uh,
It's Diablo
damn.
2. Ripping people off was its own. I mean, that's kind of why I made it beautiful. It was ripping off people. I'm not gonna pretend.
So that's why you were into it? Just the pure ripoff? I remember getting to the cow level. That was fun.
Oh yeah, the secret cow level. That was fun.
Was there any secret levels in Diablo 1?
That's a good question. I don't think so.
Because
I don't know though.
I know there's like a sort of secret level in Diablo 3 that I stumbled into. Um, oh hey, yay! I got an item for my troubles.
For your wizard that you're playing now.
Yeah, I have to wonder because in Torchlight, the same thing happens. You do a quest for someone, and you'll get some experience points and an item. I think Torchlight came out before Diablo 3, so just kind of thinking there.
I think
Who to?
Torchlight 2 came after 3, but Torchlight 1 came out before Diablo 3. Yes, and Torchlight
Torchlight.
2 is fantastic.
Yeah. I played Torchlight 2. I got Torchlight 1 and 2, and I was playing 2 fairly recently. Because I felt the urge to do dungeon crawling, but I still didn't want Diablo 3 yet. And I tried to make Iron Man out of the engineer character.
How'd that go?
It didn't go quite well. I tried to up armor and try to up like just certain type of skills, and I kept getting like really fucked. Not that good at Torchlight 2.
I enjoy Torchlight 2. I think it's what Diablo 3 should have been, personally.
Really?
Yeah, the stats were so well done in that game.
Mm.
A lot of the stats did different things like crit chance or ability damage. It was smart math. I don't even know how else to describe it. Stats were actually important. Kind of in Diablo 2, the meta really was kind of vitality or bust. I mean, you had to have the stats to meet the minimum requirements, but in Torchlight 2, it's completely different. And different stats do different things for some classes for a little bit. Like there's a stat gives you a chance to do a double attack if you're dual wielding. It was really interesting. It's a really, really, really well made game. People should really check it out.
Yeah. So, well,
Diablo 3.
Diablo 3 isn't without its merits. I mean,
Oh, definitely.
I can kind of see the reason for the direction here. Like you said with the stats with Torchlight 2, I think the thing pretty much all longtime players of Diablo games were really pissed off about was the complete just dissolution of stats, of control of stats, I should say. So whereas Diablo 2 was this wonderful realm of customization, Diablo 3 kind of just focused you on a certain type of customization for your character. No longer could you do stats. Stats were automatic, which made things more class-based. now. When you really think about it, with Diablo 3, like with Diablo 2, we said that you had actual classes for once, right?
Yeah.
With Diablo 3, you still have actual classes, but now you have actual classes that you cannot uh, readily break from the norms of their class, which kind of locks you more into trying to think and play like that class. Um, and I think that's what really pissed off a lot of long-term players. I know it's what made me shy away from it for the longest time. What are your thoughts?
Diablo 3 had so many launch problems. Apparently, the expansion really made it a lot better. I haven't played since the expansion. I played when it was really fairly new, and I beat it on
Mm.
normal, and I was like, well, I have no interest in playing Nightmare. I mean, it was fun, but there were so many problems with the site. I mean, or with the game. I'm not even sure where to begin. And this is all when it launched, so I'm not sure how much of it has been fixed. Like the real money auction hall, I'm pretty sure they just did away with that completely, didn't they? Or no?
Apparently, Crowbar is telling me that there was a hidden quest in Diablo 1 called the Jersey's Jersey, and
And
Triox45 was saying that they World of Warcraft Diablo 3, which is, true. I mean, there's so many elements, design elements here. One thing is, like we said before, the chat window, the way they do chats.
yeah, the textures and stuff, they look very, very wowish. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot of asset overlap.
Yeah, but if we're gonna speak about if we speak purely on a graphics thing, the one thing that really surprised me when I first got into Diablo 3 was I used a spell on the wizard with the wizard that made an explosion, and that explosion caused things to fly away and fly apart. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And an enemy had like flown out of screen. I was like, oh, did that shit glitch? How fucking shittily was this game thrown together? And then it fell back down, and then I realized, oh, there's a full physics engine in this game. That's something that you really didn't get in the you didn't really get in the other games.
The
So
older games.
yeah,
Yeah, that's true.
there's an actual full physics engine here at work, which is pretty goddamn interesting.
Yeah, I
Um,
didn't like 3D though. I prefer 2D so much more in these types of games.
yeah,
It
but
felt. I mean, there's the whole cartoony look of it, and I really hate particle effects on weapons and stuff.
see, I'm,
I
I'm not bothered by the graphical direction. Not really at all.
You don't think
Um,
it's not a grim dark enough, not edgy enough?
no, I never was one of those people because when Diablo 3 was being developed and people were like complaining about it not being grimdark enough, I remembered playing Diablo 2. Diablo 2 isn't all that grimdark. It's just you didn't have that many colors back then. You didn't have particle effects or anything like that. Um, and your stuff is pretty static. So whereas in Diablo 3, I'm walking around in grass right now, and you can see the grass move and stuff like that, and people are like, "Oh, that's not grimdark enough." But in Diablo 2, it's like, "Oh, what were your options for grass? We'll make it just a green ground and put some textures. There you go. It's AstroTurf."
All
So
right,
there's
well, I like my AstroTurf.
there's a lot more detail to the characters that are actually in motion that are moving. And I like those effects. I'm not really one that disagreed with the art of it, and it doesn't look like World of Warcraft to me, and it still has that Diablo feel because it's a 3D game, but your camera is locked into an isometric camera angle.
Yeah, that's true.
So I'm
Um,
not really that concerned about it all.
how do you feel about the removal of skill trees?
See, now that's one thing that I another thing that made me shy away from it quite a bit. Honestly, the only reason why I picked up Diablo 3 was because I was in a GameStop. I know, fucking GameStop. Um, and I saw the special limited edition of the expansion sitting on the back shelf, and it was like half price. The thing usually went for like $100. I got it for 50. He's like, "Oh, no one's buying this goddamn thing." I was like, "You know what? I like special editions of things. Let me do that." and that's what got me into Diablo 3. But the dissolution of skill trees, at first it was kind of really, really angering to me. I'm just going to pop up the
Mhm.
skills here for the mage. Because, alright, so as you went through, you have a primary and secondary, which is left click, right click. Then you have your defensive, well, and you have your action bar skills, which is 1, 2, 3, and 4 hotkeyed. And yeah, you don't really have a skill tree, you just have a skill progression. So in each one of these categories, you're going to have skills that unlock at certain levels. But you also have these little skill rune things. And the skill rune things, I don't know if that was in the vanilla game before expansion.
They were.
Okay, so I think the skill runes is actually an attempt at that customization again. Because even though those unlock at certain intervals, you can still now have your skill and you kind of customize that skill, which I think is pretty neat. But I don't know. I'm kind of torn in between things about this because it's bad and good is all I can really say,
As
because
are all things.
like there's no teleport. Cool. Um, with these skills here, like you'll never not have a skill. So there's that, right?
Hmm.
You have your skill loadout, and by the time you end the game, you can have every single skill. There's never, like in Diablo 2, there's never going to be a point where you say, well, I just can't get that skill because I don't want to spend the point on it, and by the time I end this game, I've spent all my skill points into these skills, and I can never check out these other skills if I want to keep my build or whatever. Um, your skill tree progression in Diablo 2 had to be closely tied to your attribute progression and your armor and loadouts, but your armor and loadouts didn't really pay that much of a fuck, I can't word today.
I
It
hate
didn't
not
really,
being able to word.
it didn't pay that many dividends towards your skills and your stats. In this one, they said, well, screw stats, screw missing out on skills. We'll just make your customization based on your armor, which I think I never played World of Warcraft, but that from what people have told me, that's more of an MMORPG sort of design philosophy, where it's more based on your loot than it's based on what you've done. Uh,
Yeah, because
so
classes usually got everything unless there was different skill trees and stuff. But go on.
yeah, so I have mixed feelings on it, simply from the standpoint of well, it's good if you really don't have a whole lot of time to play video games, or if you, like, say you spend a lot of time in a character. Now you don't have to go back and say, well, gee, what if instead of putting these points into Dex, I put them into Magic instead? How much better would my character be? Instead of doing that type of shit, uh, now you can just go ahead and go, well, you know what? I'll just get this different armor, and I could respec all my skills, or not respec, but I can just change the way I've loaded out my skills, and you could basically create a whole new build on the fly, which is pretty interesting, especially if you like to play the game solo. Like we discussed with Diablo 2, if you championed one element on the sorceress, uh, and you ended up against creatures that were resistant to that element consistently, you were kind of fucked. Especially if you didn't like to play with others. But in this one, you can go ahead and say, well, you know what? Let me just kind of change my armor loadout, change my skill loadout, and bam, now I can deal with this. So in some cases, it's like, oh, that's pretty interesting and convenient, but there's a certain part of me that's saying, well, you've just kind of killed the challenge and the sort of dedication it takes towards being in a certain aspect of your class. So like with a necromancer in Diablo 2, you could do a lot of summoning stuff, but if you try to suddenly switch gears in the middle of the game, you're going to have a bad time. This one, you could switch gears and be very adaptable. Again, I might be saying the same point over and over again, but it's something that's just,
Oh no.
it's really hard to fault, but at another point, it's really easy
It's hard to
to fault.
champion. Yeah, there was a lot of good design practices within. There was a lot of bad ones. For me, let's make some acknowledgments right off the bat. The older Diablo, like Diablo 2, well, Diablo 1 didn't really have abilities. I mean, if you're a mage, you had spells. But in Diablo 2, it did boil down to, look, if you're a barbarian, throw up your shout, go whirlwind everything, or frenzy. Do whatever your best skill is, more or
Yeah.
less. There wasn't too much variety. I mean, there were classes that had a lot of skills that they used, like the Necromancer.
Well, you're talking from an end game PvP perspective, right?
Well, not PvP, but just higher level, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, if you're a sorceress, if you're a Blizzard sorceress, you're gonna be casting Blizzard. That's what you're gonna be doing. You're a cast Blizzard and go. So when I say that, keep this, or when I harp on Diablo 3, keep this in mind. And what I didn't like about Diablo 3 is that there were all these different choices and such, but when I played through as a witch doctor originally, and that was the only character I played through with.
Hmm.
There weren't that many great abilities. There were just abilities that I would just never use. If there were PvP in the game at the time, then I could see them being used. But really, there was just abilities that were, this is the best. Like, this is the strongest ability. You'd be foolish to not use this. And I understand that comes down to balance a lot. But I think it's a
Yeah.
lot easier to go with the flow of what is optimal when you have everything unlocked. And it's very easy to mix and match what is the best, as opposed to, if I dedicate to a certain skill tree, I only have so many tools to work with. And
Yeah.
I could splash into another tree and, get these tools that would be better, but then I'm less powerful in what I'm dedicated to. And it was a good balance, and I enjoyed that.
Well, also, I mean, we should keep in mind that during the heyday of Diablo 2, you could have a pretty badass character, and then an update can fuck you over, and then you have to spend a lot of time dedicated to basically creating a whole new character, so you could just deal with the realities of that new update. And I guess in Diablo 3, they kind of realized that, so now an update comes along. Oh, that loadout I had isn't the most powerful for this class anymore. Here, let me just change my skill on button number 2 here, and then bam, I'm good.
Hmm.
Convenient, but sort of feels lazy. And I know that's really hard to like get across, because games are about fun, not work. But there's a certain aspect that should be worked, I think. Like with
Definitely.
these type of games, and it kind of takes out the wonder of it. Like, you know, what if I took that character class and I really tried to just go against the grain? What if I took that rogue and just dumped a lot into strength and found that one skill that was really up into strength? Like, what would happen then? Because I found that happen quite a bit on Diablo 2, at least in the lower levels, is that there were certain skills whose power was kind of reliant on the fact that you might not ever try to take the character in a direction that would really optimize that skill's power. So, like, certain things I guess the designers maybe this was just early on, but the designers would be like, oh well, this character class they're gonna go this way, so we'll have this skill so they could boost so they can use this certain aspect, but they're probably never gonna dump a shitload of stats into
Yeah,
that
you
aspect.
can use poison dagger.
Yeah, so yeah, everyone's gonna just summon with a necromancer. No one's gonna fucking use poison dagger, and then you just dump everything into poison dagger, and then everything that's going to just shitloads of things into decks, fuck mana, and then you just become this thing that kills everything with a poison dagger. So there's that sort of aspect, that sort of fun and surprise too. Because surprising to yourself because look what I was able to make against what is the usual grain of this game, and also surprise of other people when they happen upon your character, be it PvP or in PvE, where they go, why is your character not summoning skeletons? Well, it's because I can do this, and the boss is dead in a couple hits.
Yeah, I remember I made a curse necromancer. It was fun. There's a lot of really, really good curses. There's one where you get life drain on hit. Amplified damage was amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, so I don't know. Diablo 3. I wish I had skill trees. That's just how I put it. The different rune words were cool, and a couple times it's like, all right, maybe I should do this. I had a couple of like, all right, well, I really don't know which one I should go with. But for me, it was a very simple choice of what I felt was the best abilities.
I was horrible with socketed items. I still am. I'm horrible with that type of shit because I always save those type of things for let me save this for the next thing that's coming around so I can really make that next weapon really powerful. And the next weapon comes around and it's like, there's probably going to be something better that I can socket this into, and I just end up hoarding gems and runes and shit, which is just fucking bad. I'm trying to break myself away from that mentality. And Torchlight actually helped with that, because Torchlight had those shops that could pull sockets out or gems out and things like that. And Diablo 2 didn't have that in the beginning. I think Diablo 3 has that.
Which gems?
Well, yeah, where you can have a socketed item and then you can just go ahead and say, well, I want to get that gem back from this item. But I think it sacrifices the item, which is fine.
I think there's a Herodric recipe. I could be wrong, though.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not even far enough to have a Herodric. I don't know if you get that in Diablo 3. But yeah, Diablo 3, it's like you never have to wonder what if with your character. And you're never going to be invested in the time of that character. You can basically pick a class, build a character, get it to full level, and then all you really have to do to change your character is change your armor. And now it might take time to hunt down the stuff to make the better armor for the loadout you're thinking of, for your skill loadout, but it's really just make the one character and go with it. There's never really a point to having like different characters of the same class. You might have like 2 or 3 barbarians in Diablo 2, but in Diablo 1, you have 1 barbarian, or you have one wizard, which is what I'm playing, and then you're just going to have different armor sets in your chest. And that's it.
See, here's the thing I don't like about the armor, and I believe they can really widely change your character, but when it's dependent on gear, that is way different than if it depended on a skill tree, because you might not get the armor. If you have resources to buy it on the auction hall or whatever the hell, then yeah, it's not, an issue. But if you're kind of new or you just don't have a lot of gold or whatever the hell the currency is, you are dependent on getting this armor to really change up your character. Or at least that's what I get from the gist of it.
Yeah.
As opposed to the skill tree, it's like, alright, I'm going to be a melee sorceress or whatever and use ice armor or whatever the hell.
And there's no point to naked duels anymore.
Yeah.
Hey, you remember that rainbow world I was telling you about?
Yeah.
I just found it.
Well, congratulations. Any closing thoughts on Diablo 3? Or the Diablo series in a whole?
Closing thoughts?
Unless there's something major we missed. We can talk about it.
Oh well, someone in the chat wanted us to talk about Leia, which is the basically the replacement for Deckard Cain.
Deckard
This-
Cain or bust.
Well,
Sorry.
I mean, the story of Diablo 3, I'm really not that deep into it yet. I'm just on the second act, really, and so I really can't mention much about it. Seems pretty basic, you know. I mean, it's not like we haven't seen a Leah-like character before, is what I'm saying. Like, you have those characters that are always going to be like, oh, you know, I didn't listen to my crazy uncle, and turns out he was right, and now I'm sort of a chosen one. That's happened in so many different any type of media, really. There's always been that character. So if people are not liking the character, it I really can't understand why, because it's happened in so many other things. Shit. Uh, a Link to the Past. That's how it starts. Oh, Uncle went off to go. Uncle went off to go fight. Oh, looks like you're the chosen one, Link. Better help everybody.
You just pissed off your fan. Nah, I'm not too invested in the lore of any of the Diablo games. Because usually it was me kind of playing with friends, and they wanted to skip the dialogue and stuff, and I was like, all right, well, I guess we gotta do that.
Well, the lore for Diablo games has been pretty basic. Oh no, the end of the world is coming because of evil, and then you stop that, and it happens again and again. I don't know what makes Diablo 3 any more special in that regard, because it seems like that same oh no, end of the world is coming thing. Uh, but it's just different people being the end of the world. Diablo 2 expanded a lot on the universe, and Diablo 3 seems to be expanding a lot more on it. That's really all you can say about it. They're getting deeper into the nature of the angels versus the demons and all that shit, light versus dark. And I think the whole thing is going to end up as in, like, only humans are the good guys? It seems to be the way it's going to lean. Or, you know,
That sounds about right.
people of the light can be dark. I don't know. But the story is incredibly cliched at this point. So I'm not really, I don't know. And I haven't really paid much attention to Leah character. So with Deckard Cain, like, dying, I was like, well, he's, like, 800 years old or something. I was surprised he lived in the beginning cinematic. In the beginning cinematic, a fucking meteor drops on him. And he lives through that.
Well, yeah, he's a Haradrim.
Like, a meteor drops on him, and then he falls down a huge chasm, and his old ass survives all that, and then it's something stupid that kills him in the end.
I don't even remember. That's
But
probably good. And what's up?
You think Deckard would have mentioned Leah in Diablo 2, maybe?
He said he was the last of the Haradrim.
Looks like he lied.
Well, Deckard Cain isn't going to tell Miss Cain about what's happening.
Well, she's like his no, not daughter, niece. So I don't know. Whatever. She's currently in my party now, running around in this.
Did you like companions? They had companions in Diablo 2, and they were in Diablo 3 as well. Did you like them or no? Did you like having a mercenary around?
Diablo 2 companion. Actually, you know, they don't bother me. So, I mean, they do their job. I like that I'm able to, like, the companions in Diablo 3, you can customize certain skill sets with them. And that's pretty cool, because that allows you to basically customize your companion to your character and to your particular loadout or class, which is pretty neat when you think about it. And the companion, I think, is the one thing that you really can't just switch on the fly when it comes to the loadout of their skills. I think once you set them, they're set. I haven't been playing this game for long, so I can't really comment too much on that aspect. but I do like the companions here better than in Diablo 2. Because in Diablo 2 was like, oh, just rent someone. Oh, look, they died. Rent a new person. In this one,
Yeah,
it's
you could equip them. You could revive them and equip them later on the expansion.
yeah, but they failed me once. They'll probably fail me again. I'd rather
Yeah,
get
just get them. Take care of them permanently. Let them rot.
Ray of Frost close. But yeah, as far as Diablo games go, two is probably still going to be my favorite overall. Uh,
Hmm.
three has its merits, and I would be interested in seeing what Diablo 4 will look like in 10 years. When Blizzard finally stops making World of Warcraft expansions. When they get tired of money, when they have too much money.
I'm not sure. I think World of Warcraft 2 will happen before that happens.
You know what, though? I think Blizzard has held off on doing things like World of Warcraft 2 because EverQuest 2 didn't really quite pan out that well.
Yeah. Ugh. I played that game.
So I kind of get why they've been holding off because you're always going to have. We live in an age where people will hate on a game just to be hipster hatey on a game. You know what I mean? Like,
Like Gone Home.
yeah, that what?
I'm kidding.
Oh man, I almost reflexively agreed with that, and I was about to have to commit Sudoku, have to perform the ritual of Hello Kitty.
Well, I don't want to be Hello Kitty. That's for damn sure.
But the yeah, so people will kind of like, oh well, fuck Warcraft 2. It doesn't look good. It doesn't play like Warcraft 1, but really, Warcraft 1, I'm assuming it's so far from the original game because of all the expansions. Who would really be able to fucking tell? So you'd probably just have hipster battle, or maybe not, because World of Warcraft has been essentially that name has been essentially a license to print money for quite a while now.
Yeah, I think it's good. It's like it's the new EverQuest 1. Really, it's gonna keep getting more and more expansions. Hell, EverQuest 1's still getting expansions.
People are still playing EverQuest 1.
Yeah,
Are they
apparently.
still paying to play it? Because the one thing that I've noticed since World
Yeah.
of Warcraft has hit the scene is that
Hmm.
there's been a shitload of there's been a shitload of MMORPGs because it seemed like a pretty good model for a lot of these game companies, and then they try it, and no one really wants to pay for this subscription long enough to make it viable for them, and they have to go free to play or die.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll talk about MMOs on a future episode for sure.
Yeah.
I think that they're making more money than they let on. I mean, especially if
But the
they're subscription
microtransactions,
based.
yeah.
Oh yeah, and with optional purchases. But where can people find you, and who are you? For everyone
Okay, well, you can find
minus.
me in a lot of places. The best place to find me is on Steam in the Binary Ghosts group. Um, that's the best place to find me. Or on this Twitch channel, I do stream at least once a week. But on the Steam group is where you'll hear my announcement for streaming. Also, I've gotten into announcing them on Twitter as well. So Keith plus plus at Twitter or on Twitter at Keith plus plus on Twitter if you like to follow me there. I don't tweet a whole lot, so don't look for a lot of insights or anything from that. Um, and that's basically it about me. I don't normally do these co-host things. I'm normally streaming video games. Tomorrow I'll be streaming Lost Planet 2, and that's it's gonna be my first time playing a Lost Planet game. That'll be interesting.
Lost Planet 2 is a good one, and I appreciate you coming on the co-host.
Oh, it's fine. I
Pleasure.
like this. It's nice to have a conversation directly into my ear.
It is. It's a pleasure. But no, this has been Shellfish with Spousefire.com. Site's not out yet, but look forward to a community-driven video game site for pretty much anyone. Anyone can use it. Anyone can publish. So look forward to it. Email me at shellfish@gmail.com. or follow me on Twitter at SpellsFired. And thanks again for listening, everybody, and have fun.
Later, guys. Well, I'll still be streaming.
Yeah, you still be streaming.